Hashtag the hook. Some moments change everything in the span of a heartbeat. For Maya Rodriguez, that moment came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday night when her 3-year-old daughter stopped breathing. What started as a mother's desperate plea for help in a hospital parking lot would become a love story that defied every expectation, challenged every assumption, and proved that sometimes the most beautiful connections emerge from our darkest hours. This is the true story of how a single mother's worst nightmare led her to discover that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear expensive suits and carry the weight of billions, yet find their greatest purpose in the smallest moments of human connection. It's a story about breaking barriers, finding hope in unexpected places, and learning that love recognizes no boundaries when two hearts are meant to find each other. Maya Rodriguez had always been a light sleeper. It came with the territory of being a single mother to 3-year-old Sophia. Every cough, every restless movement, every whisper in the night would pull her from whatever dreams she managed to catch between her double shifts at the diner and her weekend cleaning jobs. But tonight was different. Tonight, the silence woke her. She bolted upright in her small bedroom, heart already racing before her mind fully understood why. The apartment felt wrong somehow. Too quiet, too still. She strained her ears for the familiar sounds of Sophia's breathing from the next room, but heard nothing except the distant hum of traffic on the highway and the neighbor's television bleeding through the thin walls. Maya's bare feet hit the cold linoleum floor as she rushed to Sophia's bedroom. The nightlight cast eerie shadows across the walls covered in crayon drawings and alphabet stickers. Sophia lay in her toddler bed, but something was terribly wrong. Her little chest wasn't moving with the steady rise and fall that had lulled Maya to sleep countless nights before. "Sophia? Baby." Maya's voice cracked as she reached for her daughter. Sophia's skin felt clammy and cold. Her lips had a blue tint that made Maya's blood turn to ice. She pressed her ear to Sophia's chest and heard only the thundering of her own heartbeat. Without hesitation, Maya scooped Sophia into her arms and ran. She didn't stop to grab shoes or a jacket. She barely paused to snatch her car keys from the kitchen counter. The hospital was only 15 minutes away, but every second felt like an eternity as Sophia remained limp and unresponsive in her arms. The old Honda Civic sputtered to life on the third try. Maya had been meaning to get it looked at, but money was tight, and the car payments already stretched her budget beyond its limits. Now, as she raced through empty streets with her daughter's life hanging in the balance, she prayed to whatever gods were listening that the car would just hold together long enough to get them to safety. The emergency room entrance of St. Mary's Hospital blazed with fluorescent light against the darkness. Maya burst through the automatic doors, Sophia still motionless in her arms. "Help! Please, someone help! My daughter isn't breathing." The waiting room erupted into motion. Nurses appeared from behind the triage desk. A doctor materialized with a stretcher. Maya felt Sophia being lifted from her arms, and suddenly, she was following a parade of medical professionals down a hallway that seemed to stretch forever. "What's her name?" a nurse asked, jogging alongside the stretcher. "Sophia. Sophia Elena Rodriguez. She's 3 years old. I found her like this. She wasn't breathing. I don't know what happened. She was fine when I put her to bed. She had dinner. We read stories. She was completely normal." The words tumbled out of Maya in a rush, as if speaking fast enough could somehow make everything okay. "When did you last see her breathing normally?" "Around 9 o'clock. Maybe 9:30. I checked on her before I went to bed at 11, and she seemed fine. I always check on her. Always. I'm a good mother." "I would never." "Ma'am, we know you're a good mother. We're going to take excellent care of Sophia, okay? I need you to wait here while we examine her." Maya found herself standing outside a room marked Pediatric Emergency, watching through a window as doctors and nurses worked over her daughter's small body. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she could see the urgency in their movements, the way they communicated in quick, sharp gestures that spoke of years of training and too many emergencies. She sank into a plastic chair in the hallway, only now realizing she was still in her pajamas and bare feet. Her hands shook as she tried to process what was happening. Sophia had been healthy. No fever, no complaints, nothing that would have warned her that something like this could happen. Mrs. Rodriguez? Maya looked up to see a young doctor with kind eyes and tired lines around his mouth. I'm Dr. Chun. Sophia is stable now, but we need to run some tests. Her breathing was severely compromised when you brought her in. Do you have any family history of respiratory issues? Any allergies we should know about? Maya shook her head. No, nothing like that. Her father. She paused, swallowing the familiar bitterness that came with mentioning Carlos. Her father isn't in the picture. It's just us. Has been since she was 6 months old. She's never had any serious health problems. Just normal kid stuff. Colds, ear infections once. Is she going to be okay? We're doing everything we can. The good news is that she's responding to treatment. Her oxygen levels are improving. But we need to figure out what caused this episode so we can prevent it from happening again. Hours passed in a blur of forms to sign, insurance cards to present, and questions to answer. Maya called in sick to both of her jobs, knowing she couldn't afford to miss work, but unable to imagine being anywhere except by Sophia's side. She watched the sun rise through the hospital windows, painting the walls in soft gold that felt inappropriate for such a frightening night. Sophia slept peacefully in the hospital bed, tiny in the maze of wires and monitors. Maya held her small hand and whispered promises she hoped she could keep. Promises about better days ahead, about the bicycle they would buy for Sophia's 4th birthday, about the trip to the beach they'd been saving pennies for. Excuse me, are you Sophia's mother? Maya turned to see a tall man in an expensive-looking coat standing in the doorway. He had dark skin, graying hair at his temples, and the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. She glanced around, confused about why this obvious stranger would be looking for them. I'm sorry, do I know you? No, you don't. My name is Marcus Williams. I was in the hospital visiting someone when I heard you in the parking lot earlier. You were carrying your daughter, asking for help. I wanted to make sure she was okay. Maya studied his face, trying to place him. There had been so much chaos when they arrived. I don't remember seeing you. You were focused on your daughter, as you should have been. Is she all right? There was something in his voice, a genuine concern that surprised Maya. Strangers didn't usually follow up on emergency situations, especially not well-dressed strangers who looked like they had much more important places to be. The doctors say she's stable. They're running tests. Maya's voice was hoarse from worry and lack of sleep. I'm sorry, but why do you care? I mean, that sounds rude, but I don't understand why you're here. Marcus moved closer, his hands clasped behind his back. I have a daughter too. Well, had. She would have been about Sophia's age now. The past tense hung in the air between them like a physical weight. Maya felt her defenses soften slightly. I'm sorry. Thank you. When I saw you tonight, the fear in your voice, it brought back a lot of memories. I know what it's like to feel helpless when your child is in danger. I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything you needed. Maya looked at him more carefully now. His clothes were clearly expensive, from the tailored coat to the leather shoes that probably cost more than she made in a month. But his eyes held a sadness that money couldn't mask, and his offer seemed sincere. That's very kind of you, Mr. Williams. Marcus Williams. And, please, just Marcus. Maya Rodriguez. And this is Sophia. She gestured toward the sleeping child. We'll be okay. The hospital has been very good to us. Marcus nodded, but he didn't leave. Instead, he pulled a business card from his coat pocket and set it on the bedside table. If you need anything at all while you're dealing with this, please don't hesitate to call. Sometimes hospitals can be overwhelming, especially when you're handling everything alone. Maya picked up the card and nearly dropped it. The embossed lettering read Marcus Williams, CEO, Williams Industries. She had heard of Williams Industries. Everyone in the city had. They owned half the skyscrapers downtown and employed thousands of people. Marcus Williams wasn't just rich. He was billionaire rich. You're that Marcus Williams? He smiled ruefully. Guilty as charged. But, right now, I'm just someone who remembers what it feels like to sit in a hospital room and pray for good news. Before Maya could respond, Dr. Chin appeared in the doorway with a clipboard and an expression that looked cautiously optimistic. Mrs. Rodriguez? We have some preliminary results. Sophia appears to have had a severe allergic reaction. Have you introduced any new foods, soaps, detergents, anything different in her environment recently? Maya's mind raced. No, nothing new. We had spaghetti for dinner, which she's had dozens of times. I used the same laundry detergent I always use. The only thing, she paused, remembering. The only thing different was that my neighbor gave Sophia some strawberries yesterday afternoon. But she's had strawberries before. Sometimes allergies can develop suddenly, even to foods a child has eaten safely in the past. We're going to keep Sophia overnight for observation, but I think she's going to be just fine. We'll send you home with an EpiPen and detailed instructions on how to use it. We also want to schedule a follow-up with an allergist to identify exactly what triggered this reaction. Relief flooded through Maya so powerfully that her knees nearly gave out. Sophia was going to be okay. Her baby was going to be okay. Thank you, she whispered, tears finally, coming after hours of holding them back. Thank you so much. Dr. Chin squeezed her shoulder gently. You did everything right, Mrs. Rodriguez. Getting her here as quickly as you did probably saved her life. As the doctor left, Maya became aware that Marcus was still there, having quietly witnessed the entire exchange. She wiped her eyes, suddenly self-conscious about crying in front of a stranger, especially one as important as Marcus Williams. Good news, he said simply. The best news. Maya looked at Sophia, color slowly returning to her cheeks as she slept peacefully. I can't believe how close we came to. I don't even want to think about it. But you don't have to think about it. She's safe now. They stood in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both watching Sophia's steady breathing. Maya found herself wondering what Marcus's daughter had been like, what had happened to her. The sadness she'd seen in his eyes suggested a story she wasn't sure she wanted to know. The allergist he mentioned, Marcus said quietly. They can be expensive and sometimes hard to get appointments with quickly. If you'd like, I know some excellent specialists who could see Sophia this week. Maya stiffened slightly. She appreciated his kindness, but she'd been taking care of herself and Sophia just fine without charity from strangers, no matter how well-intentioned. We have insurance. We'll be fine. Marcus raised his hands in a gesture of peace. Of course, I didn't mean to overstep. I just know how these things work sometimes. The system isn't always as efficient as we'd like when it comes to follow-up care. He was right, and Maya knew it. Getting an appointment with a specialist could take weeks, sometimes months. But accepting help from someone she'd just met, especially someone as wealthy as Marcus Williams, felt complicated in ways she couldn't quite articulate. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really, you don't know us. You don't owe us anything. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on Sophia's peaceful face. When my daughter was sick, a lot of people helped us. Doctors, nurses, even strangers who had no reason to care. After she died, I promised myself I'd pay that kindness forward whenever I could. This isn't charity, Maya. This is just one parent helping another. The simple honesty in his voice made Maya's remaining defenses crumble. This wasn't about money or obligation or pity. This was about human connection in a moment when she desperately needed to believe that good people still existed in the world. Okay, she said softly. If you know someone who could see Sophia soon, I'd be grateful for the referral. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, at REA 2 days later, Maya sat in the waiting room of Dr. Patricia Hendrick's office, one of the city's most respected pediatric allergists. Sophia played quietly with a set of blocks in the children's corner, seemingly unaffected by the trauma she'd endured just 48 hours earlier. Maya, on the other hand, felt like she'd aged 10 years in 2 days. The appointment had been scheduled within hours of Marcus Williams' phone calls. Maya had expected to wait weeks, maybe even months, for this kind of specialized care. Instead, she'd received a call that same afternoon from Dr. Hendrick's office, informing her that there'd been a cancellation and they could fit Sophia in right away. Maya knew it wasn't really a cancellation. She wasn't naive about how the world worked, especially when it came to the influence that billions of dollars could wield. But as she watched Sophia stack blocks with intense concentration, completely healthy and vibrant, she found she didn't care about the mechanics of how this appointment had materialized. She cared only that her daughter was getting the best possible care. Mrs. Rodriguez? A nurse appeared in the doorway. Dr. Hendricks is ready to see Sophia now. The examination was thorough and surprisingly gentle. Dr. Hendricks, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and laugh lines around her eyes, had a way with children that immediately put Sophia at ease. She turned the allergy testing into a game, telling Sophia she was going to draw tiny pictures on her back to see which ones her skin liked best. Maya watched anxiously as small drops of various allergens were applied to Sophia's skin, each one marked with a pin so they could track any reactions. The process took 30 minutes, during which Dr. Hendricks kept up a steady stream of conversation with Sophia about her favorite animals, her toys, and the book they'd read at bedtime the night before. When the results were clear, Dr. Hendricks studied Sophia's back carefully before cleaning off the test sites and helping her put her shirt back on. "Well, Sophia, your skin told me some very interesting things," Dr. Hendricks said, settling into her chair across from Maya. "It looks like you've developed quite a strong allergy to strawberries. That's what made you sick the other night." Maya felt a mixture of relief and concern. But she's eaten strawberries before. Lots of times. That's not uncommon. Sometimes allergies develop suddenly, even to foods that have been perfectly safe in the past. The good news is that now we know what to avoid. I'm going to prescribe an EpiPen for Sophia to carry at all times, and I want to teach you both how to use it. The next 20 minutes were spent learning about epinephrine auto-injectors, reading food labels, and understanding the signs of an allergic reaction. Dr. Hendricks gave Maya a comprehensive list of foods that might contain hidden strawberry ingredients and stressed the importance of always having the EpiPen within reach. "I know this feels overwhelming," Dr. Hendricks said as they prepared to leave. "But Sophia can live a completely normal, healthy life with this allergy. It just requires vigilance and preparation." As they walked to the parking garage, Sophia chattering about the stickers Dr. Hendricks had given her, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "How did the appointment go?" "Marcus." Maya stared at the message for a moment, unsure how to respond. Marcus Williams had made this appointment possible, but she barely knew him. Their only interaction had been those few hours in the hospital when she'd been too scared and exhausted to think clearly about anything except Sophia's well-being. She typed back quickly, "Good news. Strawberry allergy. Thank you for helping us get in so quickly." His response came almost immediately, "Glad to hear she's okay. Would you and Sophia like to get lunch? I know a place nearby that's very careful about allergies." Maya hesitated. Having lunch with a billionaire wasn't exactly part of her normal routine. She worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, lived in a modest apartment, and drove a car that was 1 breakdown away from the scrapyard. What could she and Marcus Williams possibly have to talk about? But Sophia was tugging on her hand, asking about the pictures she'd seen of a restaurant with a playground that they'd passed on their way into the medical building. And Maya had to admit, she was curious about this man who had appeared in their lives at such a crucial moment. "Okay," she texted back. Sophia would love that. The restaurant Marcus had suggested was only a few blocks away, a family-friendly place with bright colors and a supervised play area visible from every table. Maya had driven past it many times but never stopped, assuming it was too expensive for their budget. Marcus was already waiting when they arrived, having traded his expensive coat for a casual sweater that made him look more approachable. He stood when he saw them, and Sophia immediately hid behind Maya's legs, suddenly shy. "Hello, Sophia," Marcus said gently, crouching down to her eye level. "I heard you were very brave at the doctor's office today." Sophia peeked out from behind Maya, curiosity overcoming bashfulness. "I got stickers. Stickers are the best part of going to the doctor. May I see them?" As Sophia proudly displayed her collection of cartoon animals, Maya found herself relaxing slightly. There was nothing intimidating about Marcus when he interacted with her daughter. His wealth and status seemed to disappear, replaced by genuine warmth and interest. They were seated at a table near the playground, and Sophia was immediately drawn to the colorful climbing structure visible through the windows. Maya explained about the strawberry allergy to their server, who assured them that the kitchen was well-versed in handling food allergies and could accommodate Sophia's needs easily. "So," Marcus said once Sophia had run off to play, "how are you holding up? The last few days must have been terrifying." Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, grateful for the warmth. "Honestly, I'm still processing it all. When I found her that night, I've never been so scared in my life. You keep thinking you're prepared for anything as a parent, but something like this makes you realize how little control you actually have. You handled it perfectly. Your quick thinking probably saved her life." The doctor said the same thing, but it doesn't feel like I did anything special. I just reacted. That's what good parents do. They react without thinking about themselves. Marcus's voice carried the weight of personal experience. When my daughter Emma was diagnosed with leukemia, I spent months blaming myself for not seeing the signs earlier. The doctors kept telling me that childhood cancer rarely shows obvious symptoms until it's advanced, but logic doesn't help much when you're beating yourself up. Maya felt a chill of recognition. Cancer. That explained the sadness she'd seen in his eyes, the way he'd understood her fears so completely. How old was she? For when she was diagnosed. We fought it for 2 years. Marcus watched Sophia through the window, his expression distant. She was incredible, braver than any adult I've ever known. Even at the end, she was more worried about comforting us than she was about herself. I'm so sorry. The words felt inadequate, but Maya didn't know what else to say. How do you respond to a loss that profound? Thank you. It's been 5 years now, and I still find myself wanting to tell her about interesting things I see or hear. The grief changes, but it never really goes away. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Sophia navigate the playground equipment with the fearless confidence of a healthy 3-year-old. Is that why you helped us? Because of Emma? Marcus nodded slowly. When I heard you calling for help in the parking lot, it brought back every memory of rushing Emma to the emergency room. The panic, the helplessness, the way time seems to slow down and speed up at the same time. I couldn't just walk away. Well, I'm grateful you didn't. Not just for the doctor's appointment, but for staying at the hospital that night. It meant a lot to have someone there who understood. You don't have other family? Sophia's father. Maya's expression hardened slightly. Carlos left when Sophia was 6 months old. Said he wasn't ready to be a father, as if parenthood was something you could schedule around your other commitments. My parents live in Mexico, and my mom's health isn't great, so it's just us. That must be incredibly difficult. Some days more than others. But Sophia and we're a good team. We figure things out. Maya's voice carried a pride that was hard-earned. I work at Martinez Diner downtown and clean offices on weekends. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills and lets me be home with Sophia most evenings. Marcus listened without judgment, and Maya found herself sharing more than she'd intended. She told him about the nights she fell asleep at her kitchen table with bills spread around her, calculating and recalculating to make everything fit. She told him about Sophia's dream of becoming a veterinarian and how Maya was already saving every spare dollar for college, even though it was still 15 years away. You're an amazing mother, Marcus said when she finished. Emma would have liked you both. Before Maya could respond, Sophia came running back to the table, cheeks flushed from playing. Mommy, there's a little girl over there who says she knows about allergies too. Can I go play with her? Maya looked where Sophia was pointing and saw a girl about Sophia's age with her parents at a nearby table. The mother caught Maya's eye and smiled, pointing to a small bag on their table that looked similar to the one Maya now carried with Sophia's EpiPen. Of course, baby. Just stay where I can see you. As Sophia scampered off to make a new friend, Marcus smiled. She's remarkable, so confident and outgoing. She gets that from her father, unfortunately. The confidence, I mean, not the leaving part. Maya surprised herself by making a joke. She rarely talked about Carlos anymore, and she'd never made light of his abandonment before. His loss is the world's gain, and Sophia's lucky to have you. The afternoon passed more quickly than Maya had expected. They talked about everything from Sophia's favorite books to Marcus's work with children's charities. Maya learned that Williams Industries had donated millions to pediatric cancer research, and that Marcus had personally funded a new wing at the children's hospital where Emma had been treated. Do you enjoy running the company? Maya asked as they shared a plate of Sophia's favorite chicken nuggets. Marcus shrugged. It's what I'm good at, and it allows me to help people. But honestly, my favorite part of the week is Thursday afternoons when I volunteer at the children's hospital. I read stories to kids who are stuck in bed for long stretches. It's the only time I feel like I'm doing something that Emma would be proud of. Maya studied his face, seeing past the expensive clothes and powerful position to the man underneath who was still grieving his daughter and searching for meaning in her absence. I think she'd be proud of a lot of things you do, Maya said softly. When it was time to leave, Sophia had made plans to meet her new friend at the playground again soon, and Maya found herself exchanging contact information with the other mother. It struck her that this simple lunch had given Sophia something she rarely got, the chance to connect with another child who understood what it was like to live with allergies. Marcus walked them to Maya's car, and Sophia surprised everyone by throwing her arms around his legs in an enthusiastic hug. "Thank you for lunch, and for helping Mommy when I was sick," she said with the earnest sincerity that only small children could manage. Marcus crouched down and returned the hug. "Thank you for being so brave, Sophia, and for sharing your stickers with me." As Maya buckled Sophia into her car seat, Marcus stood nearby, hands in his pockets. "Would it be okay if I called you sometime?" he asked. "I'd like to know how Sophia's doing. Maybe take you both out again if you'd like." Maya hesitated. This felt like stepping into territory she wasn't prepared for. Marcus Williams wasn't just anyone. He was one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the city. What could he possibly want with a single mother who worked 2 jobs and clipped coupons to buy groceries? But then she thought about the way he'd listened to her stories without judgment, how he'd made Sophia laugh during lunch, and the genuine sadness in his eyes when he talked about Emma. Maybe this wasn't about money or status. Maybe it was just about 2 people who had found an unexpected connection during a difficult time. "I'd like that," she said finally. As Maya drove home, Sophia chattering in the back seat about her new friend and the playground, she found herself thinking about the strange turn her life had taken. 3 days ago, her biggest worry had been making sure she had enough money to fix the car's brakes before they gave out completely. Now she was dealing with a life-threatening allergy diagnosis and fielding phone calls from one of the most eligible bachelors in the city. She glanced in the rearview mirror at Sophia, who had fallen asleep clutching the small stuffed rabbit that Marcus had bought for her at the restaurant's gift shop. Whatever was happening between her and Marcus, whatever this growing friendship might become, Maya's priority would always be Sophia's well-being and happiness. But for the first time in a long time, Maya allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to not carry every burden alone. What it might feel like to have someone in her corner who understood both the joys and fears of loving a child completely. As she pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex, Maya's phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. "Thank you for a wonderful afternoon. Sophia is lucky to have you, and I'm lucky to have met you both." Maya smiled as she typed back, "We're the lucky ones." 3 weeks after their first lunch together, Maya found herself standing in front of her closet at 6 in the morning, staring at a collection of work uniforms and casual clothes that suddenly seemed inadequate for every occasion. Marcus had invited her and Sophia to a charity fundraiser he was hosting for the Children's Hospital, and Maya had no idea what people wore to events where individual donations started at more than she made in a month. "Mommy, why are you making that worried face?" Sophia asked from the doorway, still in her pajamas with her hair sticking up in every direction. "I'm trying to figure out what to wear to Marcus's party tonight. The one with the fancy food." "That's the one." Sophia climbed onto Maya's bed and bounced a few times before settling cross-legged on the comforter. "You should wear the blue dress. The one you wore to Cousin Maria's wedding." Maya pulled the dress from the back of her closet and held it up. It was simple but elegant, the kind of timeless style that could work in multiple settings. She'd splurged on it 2 years ago for Maria's wedding and hadn't had an occasion to wear it since. "You think so? It makes you look like a princess." Maya smiled. In Sophia's world, looking like a princess was the highest compliment possible. The past 3 weeks had brought a series of small adventures that had gradually woven Marcus into the fabric of their daily lives. He'd taken them to the zoo, where he'd known surprising amounts about animal behavior and had patiently answered Sophia's endless questions. They'd gone to a children's museum on a rainy Saturday, where Marcus had proven to be an excellent assistant in Sophia's scientific experiments. Each outing had felt natural and comfortable, as if the 3 of them had been spending weekends together for years instead of weeks. Marcus had a gift for making even the most ordinary activities feel special without being overwhelming. When they visited the zoo, he'd arranged for Sophia to help feed the giraffes. At the museum, he'd quietly arranged for them to have the planetarium to themselves for a private showing. Maya had begun to understand that this was how Marcus moved through the world. making things happen with such subtle efficiency that it almost seemed like luck rather than influence. But she'd also seen him in moments when his wealth and connections couldn't help, like when Sophia had scraped her knee at the playground and cried until Marcus sang her an off-key lullaby that his own daughter had loved. Those glimpses of vulnerability made him real in ways that mattered more than any grand gesture could. The fundraiser was being held at the Riverside Hotel, the city's most prestigious venue. Maya had driven past it countless times, but never imagined she'd have reason to walk through its doors. As she and Sophia approached the entrance, Maya felt her anxiety spike. "What if I don't know how to act around these people?" she whispered to Sophia, who was resplendent in a new dress that Marcus had surprised her with the day before. "Just be nice, Mommy. That's what you always tell me." Sometimes 3-year-olds possessed wisdom that adults lost somewhere along the way. Marcus was waiting for them in the lobby, and Maya's breath caught when she saw him. She'd grown accustomed to seeing him in casual clothes during their weekend outings, but tonight he wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo that reminded her exactly who he was in the world beyond their small circle. But when he saw them approaching, his entire face lit up with a smile that erased any distance his formal attire might have created. "You both look absolutely beautiful," he said, offering Sophia a small bow that made her giggle. "Maya picked the blue dress because I said it made her look like a princess," Sophia announced proudly. "Sophia has excellent taste," Marcus said, his eyes meeting Maya's with a warmth that made her forget about her anxiety. "And she looks like a princess herself." The ballroom was filled with the kind of people Maya had only seen in society magazines. Women in designer gowns, men in expensive suits, everyone radiating the particular confidence that came from never having to worry about money. Maya felt conspicuously out of place until Marcus took her arm and began introducing her to other guests with such genuine pride that she began to relax. "Maya, I'd like you to meet Jennifer and David Hartwell. They've been supporting the Children's Hospital for years." "Jennifer, David, this is Maya Rodriguez and her daughter Sophia. It's wonderful to meet you," Jennifer said, immediately crouching down to Sophia's level. "I love your dress. That color looks gorgeous on you." Sophia, never one to be shy for long, launched into a detailed explanation of how Marcus had helped her pick it out, how they'd had to make sure the fabric wouldn't irritate her skin because of her allergies, and how the dress had a secret pocket that was perfect for carrying her EpiPen. David Hartwell listened with the kind of attention usually reserved for much more important conversations. "An EpiPen, huh? My nephew has to carry one too. It's pretty cool that you're so responsible about it. Mommy taught me. She says being careful is how we stay safe, so we can have adventures." "Your mommy sounds very smart." As the evening progressed, Maya discovered that many of the guests had personal connections to the hospital that went far beyond financial contributions. She met parents whose children had been treated there, grandparents who volunteered in the playrooms, and business leaders who had started foundations in memory of loved ones. The conversation was surprisingly easy, focused more on shared experiences than social hierarchies. When people learned about Sophia's recent emergency and allergist visit, they offered practical advice and emotional support with genuine concern. Maya began to understand that this gathering wasn't just about wealth. It was about a community of people who understood the fragility of childhood health and the importance of ensuring that every family had access to excellent care. Dinner was served at round tables decorated with simple elegance. Maya found herself seated between Marcus and a woman named Patricia who ran a support group for parents of children with chronic illnesses. "Marcus tells me you're a single mother," Patricia said during the salad course. "That takes incredible strength." Maya glanced at Marcus, surprised he'd shared personal details about her life. But his expression showed only respect, and she realized he'd probably mentioned it in the context of praising her rather than seeking pity. "Most days it doesn't feel like strength. It just feels like life. That's what real strength looks like," Patricia replied. "The kind that gets up every morning and does what needs to be done without fanfare or recognition. I see it in our support group all the time." After dinner, Marcus took the stage to address the crowd. Maya had heard him speak in smaller settings, but watching him command the attention of 200 people with such natural authority reminded her of the scope of his influence and responsibility. 5 years ago, Marcus began, I learned what it meant to be the parent of a seriously ill child. I learned about the incredible dedication of pediatric medical staff, the importance of cutting-edge research, and the way hope can coexist with heartbreak in ways that seem impossible until you live them. He paused, his eyes finding Maya's across the room. I also learned that the worst moments in our lives can sometimes lead to unexpected gifts. The relationships we form in hospital waiting rooms, the strength we discover we never knew we had, and sometimes, if we're very fortunate, the new connections that remind us that healing comes in many forms. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks as she realized that part of his speech was directed at her. Around the room, she could see people following Marcus's gaze, understanding that his words carried personal significance beyond their charitable purpose. Tonight, we're raising money for a new research wing that will focus specifically on childhood allergies and autoimmune conditions. These may not be the diseases that make headlines, but they affect millions of children and families every day. A severe allergic reaction can be just as life-threatening as any other emergency, and the families dealing with these diagnoses deserve the same level of support and research attention. As Marcus outlined the specific goals for the fundraising campaign, Sophia grew sleepy against Maya's shoulder. Maya listened with growing amazement as she realized that at least part of this initiative had been inspired by Sophia's recent emergency. Marcus was using his influence and resources to ensure that other families facing similar crises would have access to faster diagnosis, better treatment options, and more comprehensive support. When the formal program ended and guests began to mingle again, several people approached Maya with questions about Sophia's experience and offers to help spread awareness about sudden-onset allergies. She found herself at the center of conversations about policy changes, research funding, and support networks, topics she'd never imagined being qualified to discuss. "You're a natural at this," Marcus said quietly during a brief lull. "People are responding to your story because it's real and relatable. I'm just talking about what happened to us. I don't know anything about fundraising or advocacy. You know about being a mother who nearly lost her child and fought to get her the best possible care. That's the most important expertise there is." As the evening wound down, Sophia had fallen asleep in Maya's arms, exhausted by the excitement and late hour. Marcus walked them to their car, carrying Sophia's small purse and the balloon animals that had been given out during the children's portion of the program. "Thank you for tonight," Maya said as she settled Sophia into her car seat. "I've never been part of anything like that before. You were perfect. People were drawn to you because you're genuine and caring. Those qualities are rarer than you might think in rooms like that." Maya secured Sophia's seatbelt and turned to face Marcus. The hotel parking lot was quiet now, most of the other guests having departed already. In the soft light from the street lamps, Marcus looked tired but content. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "When you talked about unexpected gifts, were you referring to meeting us?" Marcus stepped closer, his expression growing serious. "Meeting you and Sophia has been the best thing to happen to me in 5 years, Maya. I know that might sound overwhelming, but it's the truth. You've both brought something back into my life that I thought I'd lost forever." "What's that?" "Hope. Purpose. The feeling that maybe Emma's death doesn't have to be the end of my story with children. Maybe it can be the beginning of a different chapter." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. Over the past weeks, she'd watched Marcus come alive in Sophia's presence, seen how much joy he found in her questions and observations. But she'd been afraid to assume that his feelings for them were anything more than nostalgic affection for what he'd lost. "Sophia adores you," Maya said softly. "And so do I." The admission hung between them for a moment, loaded with possibility and promise. Marcus reached out and touched her cheek gently. "I was hoping you might feel that way. But I need you to understand something. Sophia and I come as a package. We've been through too much together for me to ever put anyone else's needs ahead of hers. If you're looking for something casual, or if you think this is just about charity or helping us out." "Maya," Marcus's voice was firm but gentle. "I'm not Carlos. I'm not going to disappear when things get complicated or difficult. What I feel for you and Sophia isn't charity or pity or some misguided attempt to replace what I lost. It's love. Real, complicated, all in love. The word hung between them like a bridge neither had been sure they were ready to cross. Maya searched his face, looking for any sign of uncertainty or reservation. All she saw was sincerity and hope, and a vulnerability that must have been terrifying for someone in his position. "I love you too," she whispered. "Both of us do." Marcus stepped closer and kissed her softly, a kiss that tasted like new beginnings and promises worth keeping. When they separated, Maya could see her entire future reflected in his eyes. Not the fairy tale version where money solved every problem, but the real version where love made everything possible. As she drove home with Sophia sleeping peacefully in the back seat, Maya thought about how dramatically her life had changed in just a few weeks. A month ago, she'd been a single mother struggling to make ends meet, carrying every burden alone. Tonight, she was part of something bigger, a relationship that had the potential to grow into a family, a cause that could help other children facing medical emergencies, and a love story that proved healing was possible even after the deepest losses. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, "Sweet dreams to both of my girls." Maya smiled as she typed back, "See you tomorrow for pancakes." 6 months after that first frightening night in the hospital, Maya woke up in Marcus's guest bedroom to the sound of Sophia's delighted laughter echoing from somewhere downstairs. She padded to the window and looked down at the expansive backyard where Marcus was pushing Sophia on the swing set he'd had installed the week after they'd started spending weekends at his house. The transition to this new life had been both easier and more complicated than Maya had expected. The practical challenges, learning to navigate Marcus's world of charity events, business dinners, and social obligations, had proven manageable with his patient guidance and Sophia's fearless adaptability. The emotional challenges had been more complex. Maya had spent 3 years building her identity around being completely self-sufficient. Accepting help, even from someone she loved, required dismantling defenses she'd needed for survival. Marcus, meanwhile, was learning to balance his desire to solve every problem with money against Maya's need to contribute meaningfully to their relationship. Their first real fight had come 2 months earlier when Marcus had quietly arranged to pay off Maya's credit card debt without discussing it with her first. His intentions had been loving. He'd wanted to relieve her financial stress so she could focus on her relationship with Sophia and their growing connection. Maya's reaction had been furious hurt. She'd felt diminished and patronized, reduced to a charity case rather than treated as an equal partner. They'd worked through it, establishing boundaries about money and independence that honored both Maya's pride and Marcus's desire to care for the people he loved. But the argument had forced them to confront the fundamental differences in their backgrounds and the ways those differences shaped their perspectives on everything from decision-making to parenting to planning for the future. Now, as Maya watched Marcus spin Sophia around the yard until she squealed with dizzy delight, she felt the familiar mixture of gratitude and concern that had become her constant companion. Sophia was thriving in ways that went beyond the material advantages Marcus could provide. She was more confident, more curious, and more secure than she'd ever been. But Maya worried about what would happen if this relationship didn't work out. How do you go back to a regular life after your 3-year-old has gotten used to private playgrounds and spontaneous trips to the beach house? Morning, sleepyhead. Marcus appeared in the doorway carrying a cup of coffee prepared exactly the way Maya liked it, strong, with a splash of cream, and just enough sugar to take the edge off the bitterness. "How long have you two been up?" "About an hour." "Sophia insisted on making you breakfast in bed, but her definition of breakfast involves ice cream and sprinkles, so I convinced her to let me supervise." Maya smiled and accepted the coffee gratefully. "And what's the compromise?" "Pancakes with fresh strawberries on the side for me, and you, strawberry-free chocolate chip pancakes for Sophia, and whipped cream for everyone, because apparently that's non-negotiable." The careful attention to Sophia's allergy needs had become second nature to all of them. Marcus had educated his entire household staff about cross-contamination, installed a separate set of cookware for Sophia's meals, and maintained an impressive supply of EpiPens throughout the house. He was more vigilant about reading ingredient labels than Maya herself, and Sophia had learned that his obsessive caution came from the same place as her mother's, absolute refusal to take chances with the people you love. They'd settled into weekend routines that felt surprisingly normal despite the extraordinary circumstances. Saturday mornings meant pancakes and playground time. Saturday afternoons were for adventures, sometimes elaborate, private tours of the aquarium, and sometimes simple, building blanket forts in the living room. Sunday mornings meant sleeping late, family reading time, and meal planning for the week ahead. Maya had kept her apartment and her jobs despite Marcus's gentle suggestions that she could afford to quit working now that they were together. But Maya wasn't ready to make that leap. Her independence was too hard one to surrender easily, and she needed to know that she could still take care of herself and Sophia if everything fell apart. Maya, Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, his expression unusually serious. I need to talk to you about something. Maya's stomach clenched. In her experience, conversations that started that way rarely ended well. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But I have something to ask you, and I want you to really think about it before you answer. He reached into the drawer of the bedside table and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's coffee cup clattered against the saucer as her hands began to shake. Marcus, before you panic, just listen. I know it's only been 6 months. I know we still have things to work through and challenges to face. But, Maya, I also know that what we have is real and rare and worth building a life around. He opened the box to reveal a ring that took Maya's breath away. It wasn't the enormous diamond she might have expected from someone with his resources. Instead, it was an elegant sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds, set in platinum with delicate filigree work that spoke of craftsmanship and thought rather than ostentation. It belonged to my grandmother, Marcus said quietly. She was a teacher who married my grandfather when he was still a struggling immigrant trying to start his first business. They built something beautiful together from nothing, and their marriage lasted 62 years. I've been saving this ring for someone who would understand what it means. Maya stared at the ring, overwhelmed by its beauty and the weight of what it represented. Marcus, I don't know what to say. I'm not asking for an answer right now. I'm asking you to think about it. To consider whether you can imagine a future where we're a family legally as well as emotionally. Where Sophia legally becomes my daughter too, and where we make decisions together as partners in everything. The mention of Sophia made Maya's throat tight. Over the past months, she'd watched her daughter form a bond with Marcus that went far beyond their weekend adventures. Sophia called him for bedtime stories when Maya worked late shifts. She saved her best artwork for him to hang in his office. When she'd gotten a small cut at preschool last week, she'd asked the teacher to call Marcus as well as Maya, because he worries about me too. Have you thought about what it would mean for Sophia if we got married? Maya asked carefully. Marcus nodded. I've thought about little else. I'd want to officially adopt her, if you'd agree to that. I know I can never replace her biological father, but I'd like to be her real father in every way that matters. And if something happened to me, then Sophia would be my responsibility and my privilege for as long as she needed me. She'd be provided for financially, of course, but more importantly, she'd be loved. Always. Maya closed her eyes, trying to process the magnitude of what Marcus was offering. Financial security, yes, but also something much more valuable. The promise that Sophia would never be alone or unprotected, no matter what life might bring. Can I really think about it? Not just say I will, and then give you an answer tomorrow? Take all the time you need. Months, if necessary. The ring will be here whenever you're ready. A crash from downstairs followed by Sophia's voice calling, "It's okay. Nothing broke," interrupted the moment. Marcus smiled ruefully. Duty calls. But Maya, whatever you decide, these have been the best 6 months of my life. After Marcus left to investigate Sophia's latest kitchen adventure, Maya sat alone with the ring box, her mind spinning through dozens of considerations. She thought about practical concerns, how to blend their vastly different financial situations without losing her sense of self-worth. She thought about emotional complications, the pressure of being married to someone whose every move was scrutinized by business partners and society reporters. But, mostly, she thought about Sophia's future. The little girl who'd stopped breathing in her crib 6 months ago could grow up with every advantage money could buy. The best schools, travel opportunities, connections that could open any door. She'd have a father who adored her and resources that would make any dream achievable. Maya also thought about her own dreams, many of which she'd set aside when Carlos left, and financial survival became her primary focus. With Marcus, she could go back to school if she wanted. She could start the nonprofit she'd always imagined, focused on helping other single mothers navigate medical emergencies with their children. She could be a full-time mother without the constant stress of making ends meet. But was it fair to Sophia to make this decision based on advantages and opportunities? And was it fair to Marcus to marry him for reasons that had as much to do with practical considerations as with love? The answer to both questions, Maya realized, was that love and practical compatibility weren't mutually exclusive. Marcus wasn't offering her a business arrangement or a charitable rescue. He was offering partnership based on deep affection, shared values, and mutual respect. The fact that this partnership would also provide financial security and expanded opportunities was a bonus, not the foundation. When Maya came downstairs an hour later, she found Marcus and Sophia in the kitchen working together to salvage what appeared to have been an attempt at French toast. Sophia wore one of Marcus's aprons tied around her waist multiple times, and both of them were dusted with flour. "How's the breakfast rescue mission going?" "We decided to call it breakfast soup and serve it in bowls," Sophia announced proudly. "Marcus says sometimes the best plan is to change the plan." Maya caught Marcus's eye over Sophia's head and saw the patient love that had won her heart 6 months ago in a hospital hallway. This was what their marriage would look like. Not grand gestures and fairy tale moments, but daily cooperation, creative problem-solving, and the kind of humor that turned disasters into family stories. "Marcus," Maya said, accepting a bowl of what had indeed become breakfast soup, "I don't need months to think about your question." His hand stilled on the ladle he was using to serve their unconventional meal. No, because the answer is yes. To all of it. Marriage, adoption, building a life together. Yes. Sophia looked back and forth between them, clearly sensing the importance of the moment even if she didn't understand its specifics. "Are you talking about something exciting?" Maya knelt down to Sophia's level, taking her small hands. "Marcus asked me to marry him, Sophia. That would mean he'd become your daddy officially, and we'd all live together as a family. How do you feel about that?" Sophia's face lit up with a smile that could have powered the city. "Really? Marcus would be my daddy." "If you want me to be," Marcus said, crouching down beside Maya. "I would be honored to be your father, Sophia, but only if it makes you happy." Sophia threw her arms around both of them, creating a 3-person hug that felt like the beginning of everything important. "I want that so much. Can I call you Daddy now?" "You can call me whatever feels right to you." "Daddy Marcus," Sophia decided immediately. "Because you're my daddy, but you're also still Marcus." As they held each other in the flour-dusted kitchen, Maya felt the last of her reservations dissolve. This wasn't about money or convenience or escaping her old life. This was about love in its most practical and beautiful form. Two adults choosing to build something lasting together while giving a little girl the stable, loving family she deserved. The ring fit perfectly when Marcus slipped it onto her finger an hour later, and Maya understood that some things were simply meant to be. 6 months ago, she'd been a terrified single mother racing through the night to save her daughter's life. Now she was an engaged woman planning a future that felt almost too good to be true. But as Sophia chattered excitedly about wedding plans, and Marcus Bega 1 year later, Maya stood in the bridal suite of the Children's Hospital's chapel, adjusting Sophia's flower girl dress for the 3rd time. They'd chosen to hold their wedding ceremony at the place where their love story had begun, with proceeds from the celebration going directly to the Pediatric Allergy Research Fund that Marcus had established in Sophia's honor. "Mommy, you look like a real princess today," Sophia said, admiring Maya's simple but elegant wedding dress in the mirror. "Thank you, baby. You look pretty special yourself." Sophia twirled in her pale blue dress, the skirt flaring out around her legs. At 4 years old now, she'd grown into a confident, articulate child who charmed everyone she met. Her allergy management had become routine, and the scary night that had brought their family together seemed like a distant memory rather than a defining trauma. A soft knock on the door interrupted their pre-ceremony preparations. "Maya? It's Patricia from the support group." May I come in? Maya opened the door to find Patricia Henderson, who had become not just a friend, but a co-founder of the foundation they'd started to help families dealing with sudden-onset allergies. Over the past year, their organization had helped dozens of families navigate the frightening world of emergency allergy diagnosis, providing everything from educational resources to financial assistance for families who couldn't afford specialist care. I wanted to give you this before the ceremony, Patricia said, handing Maya a leather-bound book. It's from all the families you and Marcus have helped through the foundation. They wanted you to know how much your story has meant to them. Maya opened the book to find dozens of photos and letters from parents whose children had benefited from their advocacy work. There was 8-year-old Tommy, whose strawberry allergy had been identified quickly thanks to educational materials the foundation had distributed to emergency rooms. There was baby Lucia, whose parents had been able to afford specialized testing because of the foundation's financial assistance program. Page after page of children who were alive and thriving because Maya and Marcus had turned their personal crisis into a mission to help others. "Oh my goodness," Maya whispered, tears threatening to ruin her carefully applied makeup. "Happy tears only today," Patricia said firmly, producing a tissue. "You've earned every bit of joy coming your way." Another knock brought Dr. Chun, the emergency room doctor who had treated Sophia that first night. He'd become a friend and advisor to their foundation, and Maya had asked him to walk her down the aisle in the absence of her father, who couldn't make the trip from Mexico. "Ready to get married?" he asked with a warm smile. "More ready than I've ever been for anything." The chapel was small and intimate, filled with the people who mattered most in their lives. Maya's mother had managed the trip after all, seated in the front row next to Marcus's parents, who had flown in from Chicago. The guest list included hospital staff who had become family friends, parents from Sophia's preschool class, colleagues from both Maya's old jobs, and Marcus's company, and dozens of people whose lives had been touched by their foundation work. As the processional music began, Maya took Dr. Chin's arm and prepared for the short walk that would officially make her part of the Williams family. But first, she watched Sophia make her way down the aisle with serious concentration, dropping rose petals with the precision of someone who had practiced this moment dozens of times in their living room. The congregation's soft laughter followed Sophia's progress as she waved to familiar faces and stopped to adjust a petal that hadn't landed quite right. When she reached the altar, she took her position next to Marcus with a proud smile that made every adult in the room remember why they were all there. Then, Maya began her own walk, and everything else faded away except Marcus's face as he watched her approach. He wore the same expression he'd had that first night in the hospital, complete focus, absolute presence, and love so evident that it was almost tangible. This was the man who had rushed to their aid when they were strangers, who had patiently built trust with both her and Sophia, who had shown them what it meant to be part of a family where everyone was valued and protected. When she reached the altar, Dr. Chin placed Maya's hand in Marcus's with a whispered, "Take care of each other," before taking his seat. The ceremony they'd planned was simple but meaningful, focusing on the vows they'd written to each other and the promises they wanted to make not just as husband and wife, but as parents to Sophia and as partners in the work that had grown out of their personal experience. "Maya," Marcus began when it was time for vows. "A year ago, you taught me that heroes come in all forms. You were a mother who would do anything to save her child, but you were also a woman brave enough to trust a stranger during your darkest hour. You welcomed me into your lives not because you needed rescuing, but because you recognized something genuine in my desire to help. You've shown me that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up every day, making each other laugh when things get hard, and building something beautiful from the ordinary moments that make up a real life." He turned slightly to include Sophia in his words. "And, Sophia, you've taught me that being a father isn't about biology or legal documents. It's about bedtime stories and scraped knees, about celebrating victories and providing comfort during setbacks. You've made me a dad in the ways that matter most, and I promise to love you, guide you, and embarrass you with my terrible jokes for the rest of my life." Sophia giggled at the reference to Marcus's habit of telling puns that made her groan dramatically, and The sound rippled through the congregation like a blessing. When it was Maya's turn, she looked out at the assembled guests before focusing on Marcus and Sophia. Marcus, you came into our lives during a crisis, but you stayed for all the ordinary moments in between. You've learned Sophia's favorite bedtime stories. You've mastered the art of making allergy-safe school lunches. And you've shown both of us what it means to be loved unconditionally. But more than that, you've helped us understand that our difficult experiences can become the foundation for helping others. Together, we've turned Sophia's medical emergency into a mission that has already helped dozens of families. And I know we're just getting started. She knelt down to Sophia's level for the next part. And, Sophia, you are the reason for everything good in my life. You made me brave enough to ask for help when I needed it, strong enough to rebuild our lives, and open enough to let Marcus become part of our family. You are going to be an amazing big sister, a brilliant student, and a woman who changes the world. I promise to always be your mom first, but I'm so happy that now you'll have a dad who loves you just as much as I do. The mention of Sophia becoming a big sister caused a stir in the congregation. Maya and Marcus had decided to share their pregnancy news during the ceremony, wanting their extended family of friends and colleagues to be among the first to know that their family would be expanding in about 7 months. Dr. Peterson, the hospital chaplain who was performing the ceremony, smiled at the surprise announcement before continuing with the traditional elements of the service. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed Maya with the kind of joy that made everyone in the room believe in happy endings. But the real magic happened when Sophia threw herself into their hug, creating the three-way embrace that had become their signature family moment. The photographer captured it perfectly, the moment when Maya Rodriguez became Maya Williams, when Sophia officially became Sophia Williams, and when Marcus Williams completed his journey from grieving father to the head of a family that had been forged from crisis and built on love. The reception was held in the hospital's community room, the same space where Maya had attended support group meetings during Sophia's follow-up appointments. The transformation from medical facility to celebration venue seemed symbolic of their entire journey, taking spaces and experiences that had once been sources of fear and turning them into foundations for joy. The evening was filled with speeches that ranged from hilarious, Sophia's announcement that married people had to share their desserts, to deeply moving, Marcus's parents' toast about watching their son rediscover happiness after years of grief. Maya's mother, despite her limited English, managed to convey her gratitude to Marcus for loving her daughter and granddaughter so completely. But the moment that would stay with Maya forever came near the end of the evening, when Dr. Chin approached their table with a special gift. Maya, Marcus, I wanted to give you this before I left tonight. He handed them a framed photo that Maya recognized immediately. It was a picture from that first night in the hospital, showing Marcus reading to Sophia while Maya dozed in the chair beside her bed. One of our nurses took this without anyone knowing. I've kept it all this time because it captured something I don't see very often in emergency medicine, the moment when strangers become family. Look at how Marcus is looking at Sophia, and how peaceful Maya looks knowing Sophia is being cared for. This was your beginning, and I thought you should have it. Maya studied the photo through tears, seeing clearly what Dr. Chun had recognized even then. Marcus's expression showed none of the polite concern of a stranger doing a good deed. Instead, it showed the protective love of someone who had already claimed Sophia as his own. And Maya's relaxed posture, despite being in one of the most stressful situations of her life, showed the instinctive trust that had allowed their relationship to develop so naturally. Thank you, Maya whispered. This is perfect. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Maya and Marcus found themselves standing in the hospital courtyard with Sophia, who had fallen asleep in Marcus's arms despite the noise and excitement of the party. So, Mrs. Williams, Marcus said softly, how does it feel to be married? Maya considered the question seriously. It feels like coming home, not to a place, but to the people who make anywhere feel safe. I know exactly what you mean. They stood together in the space where their love story had begun, watching the city lights twinkle beyond the hospital grounds. In 7 months, they'd welcome a new baby who would grow up never knowing a time when their family wasn't complete. Sophia would be the big sister she'd always dreamed of becoming. Marcus would have the chance to experience parenting from the very beginning, with all the sleepless nights and tiny milestones that he'd missed with Sophia. But even as they looked forward to their expanding future, Maya knew that this moment, standing together with their sleeping daughter under the stars outside the place where they'd met, would always represent the perfect culmination of their journey from strangers to family. Daddy Marcus? Sophia stirred in his arms, not quite awake, but seeking the comfort of his voice. I'm here, sweetheart. We're all here. Sophia settled back into sleep with a contented sigh, and Maya felt her heart expand to accommodate yet another perfect moment in a life that had become full of them. A year and a half ago, she'd been a single mother whose biggest fear was not being able to provide everything her daughter needed. Now she was part of a family built on mutual love and respect, with resources to help not just Sophia, but dozens of other children facing similar challenges. The crisis that had brought them together was long past, but its gifts continued to multiply. Every family they helped through their foundation, every research breakthrough funded by their donations, every moment of joy shared in their daily lives. All of it grew from those terrifying hours when Maya had cried out for help and Marcus had answered. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories began not with perfect timing or ideal circumstances, but with two people brave enough to reach for each other during their darkest moments. What mattered wasn't how the story started, but how committed the people were to writing a beautiful ending together. As they walked back into the hospital to collect their wedding gifts and say final goodbyes, Maya realized that their story wasn't ending tonight. It was just beginning. They had a lifetime ahead of them to build on the foundation they'd established, to face whatever challenges came their way, and to continue growing the family and the mission that had started with a mother's desperate plea in a hospital parking lot. Love, Maya had learned, wasn't just about finding your person. It was about choosing each other every day, building something meaningful together, and using the strength of your connection to make the world a little bit better for everyone whose lives you touched. And by that measure, theirs was already a love story for the ages. In making calls to arrange the adoption paperwork, Maya knew this wasn't too good to be true. It was exactly as good as love was supposed to be when it was built on foundation of trust, respect, and the shared commitment to put family above everything else. The challenges ahead would be real, merging their different worlds, navigating the public attention that came with Marcus's status, and all the normal complexities of marriage and parenthood. But they would face those challenges together as a family, with resources and love enough to handle whatever came their way. Sometimes the best love stories weren't about fairy tale endings, but about the courage to say yes to beautiful beginnings. Sophia's already planning the menu. As she pulled into her apartment complex, Maya felt a sense of peace that had been absent from her life for longer than she cared to remember. The future was still uncertain, filled with the usual challenges of parenting and the new complexities of dating someone whose life was so different from hers. But for the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't facing those challenges alone. Sometimes the best love stories began not with romantic meetings or grand gestures, but with two broken people finding ways to heal each other while building something beautiful from the pieces of their separate pasts. And for the first time since Carlos had walked out of their lives, Maya meant it. Shut his eyes. I'll make some calls in the morning. As the first full day since the emergency began to dawn outside the hospital windows, Maya found herself studying this stranger who had appeared in her life during its darkest hour. She had no idea that this chance encounter would change everything for both of them, that the businessman who had stopped to check on a scared mother and her sick child would become the most important person in their world. All she knew was that for the first time in years, she didn't feel quite so alone.